Good evening and welcome to our May 23rd Board of Selectmen meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to take this time to recognize that Troop 338 of the Boy Scouts is here in attendance. So we have Angus, Sawyer, James, Lucas, and Aiden. Thank you so much for coming and observing the democratic process at work. If you have any questions, feel free to come up, but thank you so much for coming out. All right, we'll start with the reading of the agenda. We'll go over our May 9th meeting minutes. We'll then move on to community relations, announcements, and open forums. We have two appointments. We have a board of registrars for appointment. We have an appointment for the Police Chief Search Committee for a citizen at large. We have 4 items on the schedule of appointments. We have a 6:35 appointment with Ms. Cynthia Cooper. We have a 6:40 appointment for the Fire Department. We have a 6:45 appointment with Joanne Savank, Treasurer Collector. And we have a 7 o'clock appointment for the 508 Beverage LLC. Under new business, we have 4 items. Number 1 is the website renewal. Number 2 is the end-of-year budget transfer requests. Item number 3 is a special 1-day liquor license requests. And item number 4 is a selectmen's meetings for our summer schedule. And we have 2 items under old business. Item number 1 is the selectman appointment to committees. And item number 2 is the Police Chief Assessment Center. We'll then move on to committee reports, policy reviews. Then we'll go to our student select persons report. The town administrator will not be here this evening, and I'll read her report. And then any other business unknown at the time of posting. And our next regular meeting will be June 6th. With that, what are the board's wishes for our May 9th meeting minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes.
We have a motion? Second. Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. I'll then move on to announcements. From the sewer department, a reminder to all senior sewer customers, July 1st, 2017 is our new year. Please bring your completed senior discount forms with your identification materials to the wastewater treatment plant at 8A Worcester Road on or before June 30th. The town hall will be closed Monday, May 29th in observance of Memorial Day. The Charlton Gardening Club will be holding a plant sale on the Common Saturday, June 3rd from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., rain or shine. Is there any other announcements?
Yes, I'd like.
Ms. Noble?
I'd like to bring up a topic during the open forum.
Make sure you speak right into the mic.
Thank you. I'd like to bring up a topic during the open forum. When we had our town meeting last week, there were several people who brought it to our attention that they were displeased regarding the medical marijuana in town and recreational marijuana. And we had a discussion regarding the votes and how they went within the state. So this week I did some research that I wanted to share with the individuals here,
Please.
with the other members of the board. Very quickly, since 2008, there have been 3 ballot questions on the Massachusetts ballot election cycle regarding marijuana and loosening the regulations, and all 3 of those ballot questions passed overwhelmingly. The first one was a sensible marijuana policy initiative. That was to reduce the criminal penalty to a civil penalty. It passed statewide, and it also passed in the town of Charlton with a vote of almost 2-1. In 2012, the Medical Marijuana Initiative, also known as Question 3, was on the November 6, 2012 ballot in the state of Massachusetts, where it was approved. And again, the vote was overwhelmingly almost 2-1. 63% statewide voted yes, and in Charlton, 61.8% of the voting public in Charlton voted yes to allow medical marijuana. Last year, in 2016, Question 4, the Massachusetts Marijuana Legislative Initiative, legalization initiative on the November 8th ballot was also approved. The statewide vote for approval was 53.7%, and in Charlton voters voted yes, 52% to 48%. So I just wanted to let the public have that information so that going forward, we would have all the numbers in front of us when discussing what goes on with the medical marijuana facility here in Charlton. Thank you.
Thank you, and that'll be included in the minutes. Is anyone here for open forum? Seeing no one, we'll move on to our first item under appointments or resignations. First item is the Board of Registrar appointment for a Republican. Attached is a request from the Republican Town Committee asking the board to reappoint Joshua Evans to the Board of Registrars. This appointment would be for a 3-year term and will expire on April 1st, 2020. We are waiting for a recommendation from the Democratic Town Committee for one of their appointments, which expired on April 1st, 2017. Ms. Craver would recommend the board make the appointment as requested. And what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I would move to approve with the recommendation as suggested.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion is second. Go for discussion. I will be abstaining from this vote. I was the person to recommend this, being the former chair of the Republican Town Committee. And this committee of registrars has both Democrat, Republican, and independent people who are in charge of watching over the polls during elections. Mm-hmm. So it's always good to have eyes on the poll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair will abstain. Motion passes at 2 ayes. Thank you. All right. Item number 2 under appointments and resignations is the Police Chief Search Committee for a Citizen at Large. As you know, the board formed the Police Chief Search Committee with the following seats. 2 Board of Selectmen members, David Singer and I think was it John McGrath? I don't think it.
It's John McGrath.
Yeah, John McGrath, not me. 1 Finance Committee member, 1 Citizen at Large, the Human Resource Director, the Interim Police Chief. Request from Dave Peters, who is interested in assisting the town on this committee as the Citizen at Large. And what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I would move that we appoint Dave Peters to the Citizen at Large
Thank you.
for the committee.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is Mr. Peters here?
Is Mr. Peters here? He is not. I believe he served on the previous committee as well. I think this is the only person who submitted interest.
Okay.
So do you have a second?
We have a second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Peters. We'll now move to our first scheduled appointment at 6:35 to recognize Ms. Cynthia Cooper. Ms. Cooper, if you would like to please come up. As the town election was held on May 6, 2017, Ms. Cooper did not seek re-election. We'd like to take this time to thank her for her many years of service to the town on the planning board as an associate member from 1997 to 2000, a planning board member from 2000 to 2010, a Central Mass Regional Planning Commissioner from 2005 to 2010, you were busy, and a Board of Selectmen member from 2014 to 2017. And we have a certificate of thanks and your plaque, so you can remember us by. And at our last meeting before the election, it just slipped our mind to the end that we didn't publicly thank you. And, the 3 years you had the pleasure of serving with you, it's been truly an honor. And you brought so much to this board, and you really helped bring Charlton forward, especially with the upcoming the town meeting. You played a major part in that. So I just want to thank you again for that and all of your service. Humble as always. Again, thank you, Ms. Cooper. We're going to now move on to our 6:40 appointment with the fire department for the acknowledgement of a donation, updates on receipts, calls, and overtime. Chief Cloutier asked to be placed on the agenda for 2 reasons. 1, Boomba's Towing and Recovery made 2 donations to the fire department. Struts for a total of $3,500 and a thermal imager for $4,500. And number 2, an update on the ambulance receipts, call volume, and reduction in overtime. Chief?
So thank you for taking a couple of minutes, and I'd like to recognize Captain Barton for doing his hard work on this project. He was, like many of the things in our community, it's very community-based, and we have a lot of good people in our community that are willing to help. And Boomers is one of those people that basically called us up and said, hey, I'm looking to do a donation for you guys. What do you need? What can we use? And what could we use as a fire service? One of the things is the FLIR imaging camera that we have here. It is a thermal imaging camera that will actually see through smoke in total pitch black darkness. Actually, the captain will walk up with you and show you, and if you want to take a look around, see how it works and such. But like you said, that camera was worth $4,500, and it was a huge part of. It's a huge part of our firefighting operation. Whenever we go inside of a building, we can find the heat and a lot quicker, be able to bring the hose line directly to it and extinguish the fire a lot faster as well. So it's really a life-saving tool as well. We can find victims inside the home or down firefighters if that happens as well. So they've come a long way throughout the years. We have one that we purchased about 23 years ago, and it's almost a large suitcase, pretty much. It almost needs wheels, it's so heavy. And now they've come down to the handheld units, and I think in the future you'll see them in heads-up displays in a lot of our face pieces in our CBA. So that technology's moved an awful long way. The other item that they've brought along today with them is the struts, the rescue struts. And when we have a rollover on a vehicle on back roads, Route 20, Massachusetts Turnpike, lots of times the vehicles are unstable. So these struts here actually use them as props to actually hold up the vehicles. And lots of times we don't get a chance to bring some of the things that we have to the table. But today we figured we'd have that opportunity, and thank Boomers for coming up and stepping up to the plate and give us a hand. So.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate that kind of partnership with the town and with the board's permission. I'd like to make sure we send a letter of thanks on behalf of the board.
Captain, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so this all came about in March. We went mutually to the town of Sturbridge to a structure fire, and myself and two of the other firefighters I was with went into the fire to help attack the fire. It was on Main Street in Sturbridge, and there was a condition called a flashover that took place in the room next door to us, and the thermal imaging camera that we were using at the time, it was a little older technology, and it completely whited out on us. We couldn't really see anything anymore. The screen just went white, and it was a little hairy. We had to get out of the building. So a couple days later, I was just happened to be mentioning it to Mike Lundquist and saying, what happened and stuff, and he says, wow, is there anything else that's out there? And I said, yeah, there's actually these better technology cameras. And he didn't even hesitate. He was like, get me the information and we'll take care of it.
That's
so
awesome.
it was pretty quick. It was pretty fast. We did some research. We looked at the different cameras out there to figure out sort of what was the best one that we could use in our department. And I talked to Mike and he was like, yeah, all set. How the struts came about is we were doing a rescue training at his facility. He gave us couple cars to cut up and roll over. And he was watching us kind of use our current struts that we had to stabilize vehicles. It's important to stabilize the vehicle if there's someone still trapped in there before we put people inside to help render aid while we're cutting the person out of the car. And he was watching us fumble with these things, and he was like, there's got to be better ones out there. And I was like, yeah, they are. They're just, unfortunately, they're expensive. There's a cost associated. So we had a demo set up for the following week. Even before the demo was done, he went over to the salesman and he was like, I'll take 2 sets. For the guys. So
Wow.
it's awesome. It's incredible that we have this relationship with Mike. We're a small department, small community, so with partnerships like that, it's incredible that we have this 2 great pieces of technology now to serve the citizens. I'll show you the camera.
Oh, please.
So the only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't look through glass, but you can actually hold on to that.
Oh, wow.
So it actually reflects, and when you ever see glass, it reflects the image that's
You see
behind it.
The chief's
Yeah.
glasses are black because
Yeah.
it's reflecting off of his
Okay.
glasses. But everything else is white. So what it does is it senses heat. So if
Look
you
like the
look,
mummy.
so if you look up, if we were looking for something in the ceiling, you'd be able to see where all the heat signature
Oh.
is in the ceiling. you can actually see the girders and where the drop ceiling bars are and stuff like that. So, you know, when we're looking for a fire, instead of us tearing apart an entire wall, trying to find where there's a little bit of smoke is, we can pinpoint exactly where the fire is, and we only have to open up that one wall. You know, that's the other major thing, is that people think about the thermal imaging cameras only to search for bodies, and it does search for victims, not only the people inside the fire. God forbid one of the firefighters go down, it allows us to, you know, find them fairly quickly. At the Griffin Road fire that we just had, we used this camera. It was on loan to us. We hadn't actually purchased it yet. I had it on my person, and we used it to direct the hose stream, because the water coming out of the hose is very cold compared to the fire. So we were able to exactly pinpoint where the hose streams needed to go to effectively put the water on the fire to put the fire out faster. So the uses of this thing is incredible.
Will you be
Like the
bringing
chiefs.
that, will you be bringing that to every fire? Will it be just standard?
Yeah, it's mounted in our truck, on our Engine 3 truck. It is mounted. It is a piece of equipment that goes in the same type as people wear their air packs. They wear, you know, they bring nozzles in, they bring the hoses, they bring hooks in. This is the officer's job to bring this in to
Okay.
search for victims. Like I said, find the seat of the fire, direct the firefighters that have the hose streams. I can tell them, go up a little bit, go up, go left, okay, right there, keep the hose right there. You're hitting the fire. So
Yep.
it is amazing stuff.
It'll make firefighting much more efficient and effective.
And it's faster, you know, and we've noticed it already that, you know, the fires are going out faster now.
Yep. Thank
That's
you for bringing
amazing.
that.
So, yeah.
And the struts are just, you know, it's just funny, this the regular, you never think about having just pieces of metal to hold, you know, a car in place, and how important that is.
9,000 pounds each strut will hold up. So they extend up. They're designed to be quickly deployed. They'll actually, 2 of the struts will be placed on our Engine 3, and then the other 2 struts will be placed on the Rescue. The smaller struts are really designed for like passenger vehicles. The larger struts are designed for like tractor trailer trucks
Oh, okay.
in heavier vehicles or taller vehicles. We can quickly deploy them on scene while we finish getting the person out of the vehicle. Once the person's out of the vehicle and the tow truck arrives, they'll secure the vehicle with their piece of equipment. We can take our struts out of the way, and then everybody kind of remains safer, you know, for that. So, like I said, if it wasn't for Mike, if it wasn't, you know, me and the chief talking about it, getting on board with a plan, Mike Lundquist coming through for us, you know, it would have been a little bit harder for us to get this equipment.
Absolutely, it's $8,000 of, you know, selflessness, you know, thank you again to Mr. Lundquist for doing that, and, yeah, I'm sure it'll be put to good use, so thank you for being open and communicating with that and communicating the needs of the department. So it's good to have top-of-the-line stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
And the other item, does anyone have any comments or questions about this awesome new equipment?
Mike's actually in the back.
Oh, Mike, you want to come up real fast so recognize you?
Oh,
How you doing? Thank you, sir. No problem. Thank you.
Mr. Lundquist, thank you so much again for this, you know, very, very generous donation. I just want to, you know, on behalf of the board, I do want to thank you, and I want to shake your hand.
No, I mean, the biggest reason we donate to the fire department and stuff like that is we work with these guys all the time. You know, we do accidents with them and everything else. I mean, it wasn't like I just, you know, wanted to just give them the money. I mean, it's pretty simple. They needed it. We're fortunate. We have a good business in town, and we donated it, you know. We work with these guys, especially with the stabilizer bars, a lot. So, you know, we appreciate everything they do.
Absolutely, and, you know,
And the
not only,
town's lucky to have the police and fire department we have, you know, we do.
absolutely, and
great
we're
job
lucky
with
to
all
have,
this.
you know, partners like you, so thank you again.
Yeah, no,
You
I
know,
appreciate it.
This will, you know, save lives, so this is
Yeah.
a big deal, so thank you.
We'll see them in use.
Well, we hope not, but, you know,
thank you
That's
so
nature.
much.
Thank you.
thank you again.
The other reason I'm also here as well is that I just want to kind of give you a rundown, some numbers of where we are for this year, in basically comparison to exactly where we were in 2015 and 2016. I think our biggest increase in volume has been our ambulance receipts. our ambulance receipts have actually increased 33% since 2015 from where we are today, actually. We've brought in over $306,000 more already this year.
How much?
$306,000 more than we did in 2015. Mainly because of the increase in staffing levels and the increasing with the grant, and also bringing our, getting our call volume out there also as well. And that directly relates to our call volume. In 2015, we, at this date and time, we're at 737 calls. In 2016, we've already increased to 897 calls. So basically, that's an 18% increase in our call volume as well. So that directly relates to dollars when it really comes down to it at the end of the day. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I did thank you a while ago for providing us with going forward with the grant, and also providing us with the 4 personnel that we originally talked about years ago, and getting those folks on board. And I estimated it was about $268,000 increase that we were losing every single year, and now the proof is in the pudding that we've gotten about $306,000 back already, so which is a good thing. There's also been a reduction in overtime. Our overtime savings number right now is at $136,000 that we did not have to pay out in overtime because of the staff that we have brought forward and brought on since the grant was implemented and the staffing level was brought up. So I think those are all really great things for our department, and especially the community. We're actually doing more calls and getting to our ambulance calls and our fire calls safer and more efficiently, and not having to call mutual aid as often from other communities. Thus, when we do call mutual aid and such, we lose that revenue. Now we're actually capturing that revenue. The community is actually seeing familiar faces that they're used to. They're seeing our personnel that are here, and personnel that I can control. Otherwise, mutual aid, I can't control those persons, obviously, because they work for another department. So I think it's a great thing for our department, and I just want to let you guys know the numbers for your own sake, and also for the community to be aware of how busy we actually are. A lot of people don't realize that.
Absolutely. And looking at the ambulance meets and call volumes, the 2015, that was fiscal year, so that was 2014 to 2015, correct?
What we actually do is we actually ran it correct we started this number in 2015, that 606,000 is from July 1st, 2014 to May 16th, 2015. We took that date and time just so it was comparable all the way across. Not quite a real fiscal year. It was basically somewhere in the range of almost 10 months, a good 10 months anyway, but not exactly a fiscal year.
And when did the new firefighters come on board again?
A new staffing model started to take shape in August of last year.
Yep.
In August of last year, we added the 4 personnel that the community, basically committed to. That was voted in the May meeting in 2016, and we added those in 2016 in August. Those guys came, and actually 3 gentlemen and 1 lady came on board. They went to the fire academy and have graduated. During that time, the grant was accepted, and another 5 personnel were brought on board as well. So our new complement obviously is at 22 personnel. So that basically gives us 4 groups with 5 people on every single group, which is basically a fire officer and 4 firefighters per group. Gets us to the scene safely, gets us apparatus that we need, and that staffing model is really what we really need to be at, especially because that's what the grant is written for, and FEMA has actually told us that that's where we need to be as well. So that's why they gave us the grant, obviously. So.
Absolutely, and it's we can expect this number to even increase even more, both the overtime and the receipts number, correct?
I believe that the overtime number is going to continue to decrease as we go along, and also the increase in receipts will definitely continue to increase as well, and including the call volume, I can see that increasing also.
And just notes on here for 2016, it went up from 600,000 to about 860. that May 16th number is before the August 2016 number, so it went up 260,000 before we added anyone else on the
Correct.
force. Did you, what accounted for that? And I imagine it was hard to fill all those shifts.
Basically, what we ended up doing is we changed our billing model, and we changed to a new billing program, which got our bills out quicker, and we bundled the bills, as they say. And when you do bundling, you get a quicker return on your product, and that's a direct relationship to that. We also trained somebody to send our billing out every 4 days. Before it was sent out maybe monthly. So we took a look at our operation, made those adjustments, and you can see the increase in that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming forward. But
Thank
is
you.
there any other comments or questions from the board?
Quickly,
Ms. Noble?
so what are your projections going forward for savings?
In what area? In overtime?
Overtime, yes, sorry.
It's okay. Our projections are figuring that we'll be somewhere in the range of about $200,000, I believe, at the end of this fiscal year, savings in overtime, which is a large reduction in our actual overtime costs. We also, with the reduction in overtime, it also has given our firefighters a chance to rest. A lot of them were filling shifts, and they were being, I believe, and a lot of us have recognized that they were being way overworked. And we could not, count on them when it really, sometimes really needed, because they were just getting so overworked. Our IODs, injured on duty claims, have dropped significantly as well since we put the staffing level into place. So I expect that we'll continue to lower that overtime rate.
I know you don't have those numbers in front of you, but can you give us a ballpark of how many cases it's dropped by the amount of injured on duty?
We have had no injured on duty since we've put in the 9 personnel.
Oh, good.
0.
That's a good drop.
And one final question, has there been any turnover since you've hired the extra personnel, or has turnover dropped as well?
We have not had any turnover at this point. No, everybody likes working for us.
Good, thank you.
We had over 135 applications for the 4 positions, which was, I think, very commendable, and tells us a lot about our community, about our department. And also, when we opened it up for the second round of 8, we ended up having 98 applications people put in for. So, so that's, I think, really a big thing to say for our community. The community does a great job and keeps us, has our back, which is great. Yep, because we're here for you guys. That's what we're here for.
Well, and you have our back, too.
Yeah, it's vice versa. That's right.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
and welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions for the chief?
Just thank you, Keith.
Thank you, and thank you all back there too. We do appreciate all your hard work every
I got a
day.
great crew, I tell you. They're great guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our 6:45 appointment with Joanne Savniak, the treasurer collector signing off note paper. I'm sorry, can you, as someone who has a hard to spell name.
Yeah,
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, how do you pronounce that?
Savignac, you did it perfectly.
Okay. She's here to ask for time on the agenda to update the board on note paperwork, and to ask you to sign. This is a
Correct.
borrowing for the ambulance and for repairs for the South Trent Reservoir Dam, so I'll have you take it away.
Thank you.
Also,
evening.
welcome
I'm-
aboard.
I'm Joanne Savignac, the Charlton's new treasurer collector. I'm in the combined position, following in the heels of Keith Arsenault, who was the treasurer, and Lucia Blanchett, who was the collector.
Big shoes to fill.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve the town of Charlton. So one of the first things I had to do was borrow some money for, I didn't bring toys, but you will be able to have toys with this, so, replacement of an ambulance and work on the South Charlton Reservoir. So, last week I took bids on this. It's a total of $296,000. $226,000 was for the ambulance, $70,000 for the reservoir repairs, the dam repairs. These were approved at the October of 2015 town meeting and the October 2016 town meeting. Last week I took bids. I got 4 bidders. They ranged from 1.24% to 1.4%. The winning bid was by East Hampton Savings Bank at a 1.24%. This is for a one-year borrowing. So I do have some documents that you'll need to sign. But before that, does anyone have any questions on it?
Is there any questions from the board? No, pretty straightforward. Thank you for bidding out. I'm glad we get some competition on
We
that.
did. We had 4 bids, and they were competitive. So the first, I'll give them to you one at a time.
Yep.
So the first one is the certificate, which simply lists what the borrowing was for and what the articles were.
And do we need to take action on this? Do we need to vote on this, or we just need to sign?
If you want to vote on signing this and approving it?
So I would entertain a motion then to award the contract to East Ham Savings Bank,
East Hampton Savings Bank.
East Hampton Savings Bank,
At a 1.24%.
at 1.24%.
Some,
What's your motion, Mrs. Singer?
to award that bid for 1.2% to East, what is it?
East Hampton
East
Savings
Hampton
Bank.
Savings Bank.
Yeah, at 1.24%.
1.24%.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion
Like
passes.
town meeting, you're gonna have to come here with what you want written out.
I will. I hinted at the vote, so.
There you go.
Okay, the next document is just the certificate signing that the town of Charlton is a tax exempt organization.
Mhm.
All 3 of these are the same, but I'll need all your signatures.
Yep, we'll happily take care of that. So while we sign this, can you tell us how do you quickly the whole bidding process for this? So the banks are welcome to vote on, come in and say what kind of percentage they want to give the town?
Correct, and they're also welcome to bid any or all of a portion of the note that's going out. In this particular instance, all 4 bidders bid on the full amount.
Great.
The last document is the most important. This is the note itself.
Ah, yes.
Oh, here, I'll read it.
I don't know why you're having me sign first.
There you go.
Is it typical to get 4? Is that about average, or is there more or less?
That was actually, I thought, pretty good.
Good.
Somewhere between 4 and 6 bids, that becomes competitive. So.
Absolutely, and that 0.2% difference.
0.24, yeah,
it adds
and
up.
the next one up from that was a 0.25, so everyone was trying to win it, thank you. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. Unless there's any other questions from the board.
Nope.
See none, thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
and welcome
thank you.
aboard.
I appreciate your signatures, thank you.
All right, we'll now move to our 7 o'clock appointment for the 508 Beverage LLC, discussion of special licenses in violation. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone to please be curious and respectful, ask for recognition from the chair, and to keep comments brief and courteous. And I'll read the memo. At our last meeting, it was explained that we received complaints that 508 Beverage LLC has violated the restrictions of the special liquor license for wine and malt beverages approved for the special event at 215 Brookfield Road, Charlton, Mass, on both April 22nd and May 7th, 2017. They have 6 additional special licenses on the following dates: May 20th, May 21st, June 10th, June 11th, July 1st, and July 2nd. And as you know, this request is at a 22-acre outdoor venue, access road around interior of venue, with alcohol to be served in 2 beer gardens, with an estimate of 500 people attending each event. The request for the special license was forwarded to the building commissioner, fire department, and police department. On recommendation of the building commissioner, the following restrictions was voted by the board. No activity at any of the events listed will allow the use, operation of, and/or racing of engine-propelled on or off-road vehicles such as motorbikes, ATVs, and other and/or two- or four-wheel drive vehicles in a manner not associated with the transportation of people to or from the site until the conditions of the planning board site plan approval decisions letter dated August 12th, 2015 are complied with and the building inspector/ZEO has issued at a minimum a temporary certificate of compliance for the project. Our office has been informed that the two of the special events allowed racing on the track, a clear violation of the license. Also, we have been contacted by the town of Sturbridge that the operators of 508 are using Ladd Road, which is prohibited in their site plan with the planning board. You did not address this issue in the special license, as the expectation was that they would comply with any planning board site plan restrictions. That was an incorrect assumption. I recommend, Ms. Craver recommends that we revisit the license and add a prohibition of use on Ladd Road unless there is an emergency situation. The town of Sturbridge has had to provide police details for both events. Mr. Jennings was present for the discussion at the meeting. Ms. Craver was asked to get more information and schedule this for the board's next meeting. She spoke with Alan Gordon, town planner, for further information on the use of Ladd Road. He stated that Ladd Road is designated as part of the planning board site plan approval as emergency access only, not to be used for general site traffic. He has also advised that there is still additional mitigation being done for sound. Mr. Jennings has been invited to attend tonight's meeting, and he's here tonight. Also provided is the May 3rd, 2017 Charlton Planning Board meeting. Field construction elements. Mr. Jennings, would you like to talk about this issue? It seemed like it was pretty clear that in our conditions that there wouldn't be operations of motor vehicles, and there was. And also you have the planning board's restrictions on using Ladd Road. If you want to talk about what happened.
Well,
And can you
first
please
of all,
turn right into the mic, please?
sure. First of all, Russell Jennings, 39 Hammond Hill Road, Charlton. I think to just briefly discuss the last question of whether or not Ladd Road is emergency access only. Emergency access was discussed using Ladd Road, not only, because not only do we operate 508 base from that location, but there is also a residence there and another business that works out of that location, as well as other properties that we own that come off of that roadway. So to say that we were not going to use Ladd Road, it's my understanding that there is no language prohibiting us whatsoever in our permit with the town of Charlton from using that road.
But what about the planning board site plan approval?
That's what I'm talking about. There's no language in there specifically stating we're not allowed to do that.
So on
There
the
is
site,
language stating that that was approved as an emergency exit, rather. We can use that as an emergency exit. But that doesn't mean we can't use it for anything else. It was asked of us in our approvals, in the permitting process, if we were planning to use Brookfield Road as our main entrance, and we are. We still are. That hasn't changed. That's always been the case. We don't believe that there's any laws, rules, or regulations in place that would prevent us, just like any other citizen, from using Ladd Road, which is a public road. That's always been our position. It's never changed. So I really don't, I don't know if you want me to answer more questions on that from you
another
guys,
issue that
or
was brought
move
up
on
was
to
the
other
operation
issue.
of motor vehicles on the track, when in the conditions we gave you for your special license request prohibited that. and it was violated. Can you speak to those?
Sure. I think there was, I think there was a lot of discussion that night on pretty much everything that was going to happen. I did go into a discussion. I actually watched the tapes again today of that meeting, where I did describe that we weren't going to be doing racing. We have not built the motocross track on the property. That was what our original permit was seeking, is to build a motocross racing facility. We're not doing that currently. We haven't reached that threshold with the town. We haven't completed things necessary that we need to do to have that happen. We were under that understanding. I think that it's very confusing talking with the language of what's permitted on an event basis and what our operational permit is seeking when we finally have that, which we're very close to having at this point in time.
But you don't have currently, and did not
That's
have,
correct.
it did not have for the previous events.
That's correct.
It's just that in the original, I'll read it again, in the original issuing of the special event permit allowing you to operate before being your final approval, that no activity at any of the events listed, the events previously listed on those dates, the grand opening and the other events, will allow the use, operation of, and/or racing of engine-propelled on- or off-road vehicles such as motorbikes, et cetera.
Yes.
Why
and,
wasn't that followed?
Again, that was just the confusion between the two permits. As we discussed at the last meeting, we're not looking to do any off-highway vehicle operations in the future until we have that permit from the planning board squared away, whether it's our conditional occupancy or our permanent one. So that's,
Yep, Ms. Noble?
Hi there. So I'm just going to ask a really straightforward yes or no question.
yep.
Based on the parameters stated in the special alcoholic beverage license, were there vehicles operated in violation of this permit at the event?
There was.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely looking back now on how things are stated and what the discussions are after the fact.
Okay,
Yes,
I appreciate your honesty, thank you.
and that's why we said at the last meeting, when we came to the last meeting, we discussed it briefly at the end of the meeting with Robin and the board, and we said, you know, that's definitely not going to happen again until everything's resolved the way it's supposed to be and what everyone is on the same page about.
Okay, so I appreciate that statement. Can you tell me how you can guarantee that?
Well, we don't have any events scheduled that would involve those activities at this point in time.
I'd hope not.
No. Well, even long-term planning. We haven't come to your board for those dates. Part of our plan in resolving that and making sure that that is, have the plan definitively narrowed down with the reasonable, realistic dates of completion of things that are necessary for the conditional occupancy permit, which with the planning board now, we have just a couple left.
Okay.
So,
you have a couple of other dates on here that you were given a special liquor license for
correct,
that have not yet occurred.
correct.
What will be going on those dates? What will be the activities?
One is Outdoor Sports Fest, which is running, just backyard games, cornhole, horseshoes, things like that, all non-motorized.
Okay,
And then the next event would be a music festival. Again, no motorized events whatsoever.
Now, going back to Ladd Road, I'm receiving conflicting interpretations of this. Ms. Graver talked to Alan Gordon, the town planner, with the planning board, and they're saying that the stipulations they designated are emergency access only, and the way you're interpreting it is a different way. Is there anyone here, if Mr. Meskis could answer that, would you have any insight, Mr. Meskis, on this, or is this a pure planning board issue? Planning board issue. Okay. Is there anyone from planning board here tonight?
If I might,
Please.
we're already on the schedule with the planning board for their next meeting.
When is that?
I believe it's the 7th or the 8th. It's the first, let me just check my schedule. It is the 7th. So at that meeting, we could discuss that subject matter with them and the language in our permit so that they could potentially draft a letter to you and give you a concise report on what that actually states. So then you're not hearing it from me or the rumor mill or, you know.
Is there anyone here from the audience who'd like to make a statement? Please come up to the microphone. Please identify yourself and your address and speak directly into the microphone so we can all hear you.
Amy Stanley, 6 Indian Circle.
Yep, just make sure you speak right into the
I'm
microphone. So
sorry
yeah,
about
feel free to pull it right up to you, right up to your mouth.
Can we just have something clarified?
Please.
If we could ask Russ. He had mentioned that there's no other events that involve motocross or any motorized sports. According to his website, July 8th, there's Sprint Cross. August 26th to 27th is the Jeep Fest. And then September 30th through October 1st, Off-Road Championship, which all may.
Yep. And also, just a clarification, the remaining special liquor licenses, which is being the discussion of tonight, is May 20th, May 21st, June 10th, June 11th, June 1st, and July 1st and July 2nd. So, are you having
Yeah,
additional
2 have
events later on?
passed. 2 have passed us by already.
Right.
The events that Amy is talking about, we have not permitted those with your board at this point in time. What we hope is that, and what our plan is that those events are going to be under our operational permit. And that's when I speak of the conditional versus the full-time operational permit. By that point in time, those events should be covered under that. So now we're all legit as far as the planning board goes, and any terms and conditions such as motocross or off-highway vehicles would be covered under that use. If we did, at that point in time or prior to, believe things were going to go in the fashion that was going to be reasonable on our end to fulfill those, then we would come before this board and potentially ask for the one-day liquor license associated with those events. But just because we're having an event doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to choose to have alcohol in tandem with it and come before your board for that request, if you follow what I'm saying.
Mr. Singer?
Just for clarification, for as far as our board is concerned, we have issued no permits, licenses for anything beyond this. So anything for August or September or anything beyond this, we have not given any licenses or permits for.
Okay, I just wanted to get it clarified because I thought he said that there was nothing, in the future.
Right, I think he was referring to what
What is
what we've given him licenses for.
Thank you.
So you're saying that you can, let's say on July 8th, then operate vehicles but not have a liquor license?
If we're cleared with the planning board, absolutely.
Okay. If
But
you're not,
we
if you're,
wouldn't-
but if you're not cleared to the planning board, you cannot operate those vehicles.
That's correct. And we may or may not choose to have a beer garden operational on those days, if we're even able to have the event.
Are there any more comments from the public? Yep, please.
Is there anything that the town does when someone violates? I mean, do they not give them future liquor licenses, or how does that work?
Absolutely, and that's the next part of the conversation I wanted to bring forward is obviously there was direct violations of conditions that we set. And, you know, it really, it's annoying to see, you know, which we think, you know, maybe because you have two different competing things, but we laid it quite clear. And you even talked about this during the meeting. We said this as part of the motions, part of the discussion when we first had this, the hearing, that being violated. Mr. Singer would like to say something?
I was just going to say, historically speaking, when we've had violations in particular with liquor
Please speak right into the microphone.
Historically, when we've had violations, in particular with liquor stores and selling alcohol to minors and whatnot, depending on how many times they come before us and everything else affects what the repercussions may be. Usually, and historically speaking, the first offense, when they came before us and we took action, would be a warning. Then would be a minor suspension, and then the suspensions would get gradually more and more severe, losing your ability to sell liquor for a day, then for 3 days, and it would get longer and longer, in hopes that they would stop coming before this board.
I gotta say, as a neighbor, you know, adjacent a neighbor to this project, I'm just disappointed that on a couple occasions you guys had spoken at the meetings asking if there was racing, and it was said clearly there was absolutely no racing. You know, so it's just concerning in the future when things are, you know, more licenses are put through, you know, if it's gonna be followed, the rules.
I know, I can't speak for the whole board, and I can't speak for planning. All I can tell you is that from my perspective, I would treat this the same way I've treated any other violation that's come before this board in the past. So I've never played favorites. It's always been fair, and we treat everyone the same. And I would do the same with this. So I would hope we would not see 508 International repeatedly coming back here again. If this board decides to take action in any shape or form, like we've never had to do, I would hope that that would be it, because the board doesn't give warning, 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 warning. You know, there's usually one warning, and then there are suspensions or other repercussions. So I can't speak for everybody, but generally speaking, that's what the board has done, and that's the way I would go. So.
And with that, would the board want to send an official letter warning of this violation?
I have one
Yep.
comment on that to make, which is more of a request. I know we are light on the board tonight, and we have our town administrator who had issues to talk about, another selectman who wanted to be here because he had issues he wanted to talk about and wanted to participate in any discussion regarding any action we would take. We didn't want to send everybody home. We didn't know we weren't going to have a board and Robin until we got here. But we didn't want to send everybody home and say, well, we're not going to listen to you. We wanted to make sure we had everyone a chance to talk, but at the same time, we've also made sure when we've had these kind of discussions, or if we're going to take a vote that could wind up punishing an entity in town, that we had the board present. So my request would be to have all this on record, have an agenda item, so we can have a vote to take action on this at the next meeting when John, Rick, and Robin are all here. We'll have the full board. Planning board can be here with a representative, as well as town administrator.
So then our next meeting would be the 7th of June.
Which is prior to the next event.
Which is prior to the next event. And with the whole Lad Road, seeing what planning board comes with, I think it'd be wise.
And then we can have our whole board, we can have someone from planning here and the town administrator as well.
So I would request if you would please come back, and once we get more information with that, we can take any action.
And
I'd
hopefully
also-
that night,
Ms.
any
Noble?
action would be recommended to be done that night. with
Ms. Noble?
everybody here.
Thank you. I'd also like to recommend that we get a report from the police department to find out if there were any incidents on the days of the events, and we can add that information to our decision-making process. I think that's very important.
I think I see
In
the chief
addition-
shaking his head yes.
In addition, if there are any letters from the community, this will give you guys some extra time to send in that information as well. I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that.
especially having it on the record. Also invite, yes,
Oh, just one more thing.
Yeah.
I know there was a notice sent out that there were certain conditions that are on the list that haven't been met yet. And I noticed there was 2 of them missing. There are condition number 14 and 15, both addressing noise. And I was just wondering if you guys could take a look at that again and make sure those 2 items are added to the list.
conditions of 14 and 15,
14
that's,
and
that's
15.
from the planning board's
Exactly.
recommendation?
Because it was mentioned that there was a certain amount of conditions that hadn't been met yet. But I noticed those 2 are missing from that list.
So if we could, please, I would like to have someone from planning board, because those are issues I'm not intelligent enough to talk about. So I'd like to have someone from planning here, whether it's director of planning or someone else, so we can get these specific taken care of as well.
And I did email Alan about that and CC'd Robin and Mr. Meskis.
And did you hear
That I
back?
noticed. And actually, the chief of police, but chief of police responded, but nobody else did.
How long ago did you send that?
That was, I think it was yesterday.
Okay. No.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
So,
Robin's been out sick for 2 days. I don't know about Mr. Gordon, but, so yesterday, okay. But
just
I would
thought that-
expect you should hear back in a timely fashion. If not, that's an issue as
Correct, and
well.
I'm sorry, the next planning board meeting, is that going to be before the June 10th?
Yes, I believe the meeting is the 7th. Is your meeting on a Tuesday, the 6th? Okay, you had stated the 7th. That was
7th.
So
So, yeah, it
your,
would be,
your meeting is the night before the planning board typically, right?
right.
I know.
Well, it
I'm
depends,
just
depends on the
asking
week.
for clarification.
I don't
I
have
mixed
the
it up
schedule in
myself
front of me
last
right
week,
now.
so.
We meet on the 6th.
We meet on the 6th, yes.
And just for a point of record, as far as planning board conditions 14 and 15, I believe they have been met. I'd have to look in the book to double check, but the notice to proceed has been granted by the planning board to the building commissioner, and that was with all noise regulations in mind, all noise conditions. So,
Mr. Meskis, can you confirm that?
Yes, it has.
Okay, Mr. Meskis says, yeah, confirms that. Yes?
I did have a conversation with Alan Gordon last week in condition number 14, which stated that there needs to be a sound booth at the entrance. That is a condition that he said needs to be met, just to clarify that.
Make a note for that. I've asked him to make a note for that, because
Thank
I
you.
want to, especially things that I'm not educated on, I want to make sure we get it right.
Mr. Meskis, are you aware of that?
The question?
Can you please come up to the microphone? Can you please, can one of you please let Mr. Meskis on the mic?
The question I heard you ask me was a notice to proceed issued, and that has been issued.
Okay. So these conditions and this condition 14 about additional work, can you speak anything on that?
That is under the jurisdiction of the planning board.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Charette? Please identify yourself and speak directly into the microphone.
Ron, excuse me, Ron Charette, 205 Brookfield Road. Mr. Chairman, it would be extremely helpful to all of us, both sides of this situation, to ask the planning board for clarity in the decisions. When we get information, and I'm sure Mr. Jennings would feel the same way, there's an ambiguity to a lot of the information that comes out of the planning department. And it can be interpreted or misinterpreted. And Mr. Singer, you're not alone in feeling unequipped to interpret. So clearly, if the board could, in some way, shape, or form, ask the Director of Planning to be very clear, very concise in his interpretation, so that those of us that are lay people can understand what he's saying, because I think some of the misunderstandings are because of misinterpretations. You know, words written down or said oftentimes cannot be exactly interpreted correctly. But my experience over the last couple of years with what's come out of planning, you do have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to really understand what's going on. So if this board could be so kind as to ask very clearly that the language be succinct, specific, and understandable, I think we'll avoid a lot of misunderstandings, whether it's the use of Ladd Road, whether it's these other issues. But a lot of times, the information coming out is, you know, I can read it one way, you may read it a third way, you may read it a fourth way. So we really want clarity so that we can avoid confusion, confrontation, and kind of move forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Singer?
Yeah, and just along those lines, you can reference me, and I would actually, I would recommend you just put it this way. When I used to teach classes, everything I had to do was to the lowest common denominator. So I would just even put it that way and ask Mr. Gordon that when he writes any of these things, to do it exactly as such. Write it to the lowest common denominator. That way, the most uneducated layperson to the most experienced planner will understand exactly what's being written and said.
Right, and without any objections from the board, I'll task Robin to request a letter from
Yes.
Alan Gordon clarifying.
Yes.
So especially for our next meeting, yes.
I was trying to check it out now, but at one point in time, all the documents were on the town's website. And that included the final decision from the planning board, just for a point of reference in case anyone wants to review the documents, sound test, everything. It was all at one point in time on the town's website. So I'm not sure if it's still there or not. It's probably under the planning board, and that has all the conditions that we just talked about on there, and you can see what has to be met in order for a notice to proceed to be granted to us, the applicant, to proceed with Mr. Meskis, which has been done at this point in time.
So I would ask then, A, if we can check to make sure those documents are still online, and if they aren't, make sure they go back, and if they are, make sure they're current and updated,
Updated.
so that everyone has access to current information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak on this matter? Yes. Sir, please identify yourself and speak directly to the microphone.
Bob Brunel, 261 Brookfield Road in Charlton. Mr. Surratt brought up the issue of clarity. What I would like, and I think some of the townspeople would like, is what is the proper venue for raising violations? Now, we had violations raised. We had violations raised tonight. But then there was reference back to the planning board, and then, okay, there's going to be a meeting at the planning board. The problem with the public at the planning board at this point in time is that after a certain number of meetings, they shut off public comment. So there's no way the public can get up and say, oh, by the way, we have 3 violations that we've noticed on such and such a date, and here's 5 videos to prove it, et cetera, et cetera. So we need a clarification as where do we go to resolve these violations?
I'd like to ask,
Mr. Singer?
I have a question as well. When they do that, are people clearly saying, and I'll use town meeting as an example. At town meeting, people will take the microphone, and sometimes, if we all see it, they'll take it again and again and again and say the same thing. But sometimes someone comes up to say something new, and they try not to cut off conversation because someone who may come up and want to say something that hasn't been said. I haven't been at that meeting. So are they giving people ample time and they're just cutting it off because they feel like the same people are coming up to argue a point, or are they not even giving people a chance to talk?
No, nobody is coming up. Those that do come up initially were just shut right off. I'm sorry, the public portion of this is shut off. You can't make any comment. And I've attended all of the planning board meetings.
I cannot speak on behalf of another board, but in violations of liquor licenses, we've had public forums to discuss any disciplinary actions of any violations. So concerning those violations, this is the forum, since we are the authorizing authority behind those licenses. I would also just recommend setting things in writing to the planning board, to the board of selectmen, CCing it, getting a paper record to start that paper trail. I think that's probably the most concrete way of making information and complaints known.
So one comment I would make, a comment and a concern. With the planning board, which is a duly elected board that we have no authority over, and they're in charge, or they're the boss of the planning director, not the selectmen. We can't tell planning what to do or how to run their meetings. I have a concern that any board would not let the public talk. All I can do as a selectman, I think, is state publicly that I think it would be an embarrassment to this town if any member of the planning board or director would not let the public speak in an open meeting. As far as action, I honestly don't know. I don't think this board has any authority to make them do something, other than public pressure on the elected officials on the planning board, who the director of planning reports to. I don't know what authority, well, we don't, I think, have authority to make them do things or how to run their meeting.
And Mr. Brunel, I completely understand the frustration behind that, but I think we're starting to get a little more off topic. But I would, like I said, I recommend submitting concerns in writing is probably the most concrete way of doing it.
Can I add on to that?
Ms. Noble?
And just to add on to that, I had mentioned earlier that when we had our next meeting, we would obviously be taking up this topic again. And Amy, you had mentioned reaching out to Robin Craver and a few other people and not getting a response. I hope you know that on the Board of Selectmen's webpage are everybody's email, all 5 of us. So please, before the next meeting, use those emails and send us your comments and concerns on any side of this issue so that we will be well informed when we come back again, okay?
Perhaps at the same time, we can get an answer from planning board as to why they run their meetings.
Absolutely, and that'll be the goal for before our next meeting is to get some sort of thing in writing. Mr. Jennings? Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. Just regarding the planning board and the public hearings that happened for roughly a 6-month time period, there's a procedure. That procedure follows Mass General Law, as well as the laws established by some of the citizens in this room pertaining to planning board approval, site plan review, all those rules and regulations. Those videos are online as well, and people can watch them and see if Mr. Brunel's opinion is supported by those. But I'd be cautious as to taking an opinion of how the planning board treated people with regards to how they actually did. And I would take objection to saying that they didn't give people a fair opportunity to speak on the project. There was quite a lengthy discussion period involved in that. That's my opinion, and I'm offering that as such, as Mr. Brunel did.
Thank you, and it's well noted, and I think we're starting to get off topic here, and I would like to wrap this up. Mr. Singer?
I'll just very, 1 second then. All I wanted to say for clarification was my concern was expressed simply as a concern, not an accusation. And my request for the planning board for clarification was exactly that, so we can get a clarification from the planning board how they run their meetings and you know, what are their guidelines for shutting off and public comment and everything else, so that we can get a fair view of the whole thing.
Mr. Brunel, did you have one last comment?
Yeah, one other thing while I'm here. We've had numerous meetings with Mr. Gordon, the director of the planning board, primarily in questions of, when is this going to happen, when can this be enforced, et cetera. His comment is he doesn't do any enforcement. It's Mr. Meskis that does the enforcement. So I would like maybe a statement from Mr. Meskis. At what point in time does he get involved with the enforcement issue as to whether they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and would he accept violations of this?
I don't want to speak for him, but I imagine he would do everything by the book and all the rules. I would invite Mr. Meskis if he wants to comment on that.
It would also be good for us if we're going to try and get clarification in the simplest terms from planning.
Can you speak
It would be very
loud?
good, I think, also, if we're going to try and get clarification from planning in the simplest terms we can understand, it would be good if we can also get them to write out some kind of again, use me, lowest common denominator process, bullet pointed of how the steps go, so that not only this board, but citizens and anyone involved will be able to go easily online and say, okay, or go and reference a document that this is the process, these are the steps, and this is who enforces what, and when it goes from one hand to the other. So it's an education process.
So in layman's terms.
Yes. It's a request.
Mr. Vasquez, did you want to comment on that, or would you be in favor of writing a letter? Can one of you please allow Mr. Vasquez to speak?
Sure.
And obviously, we have good faith that Mr. Vasquez is doing his job completely.
Kurt Meskis, Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer. The issues surrounding this project are covered by 3 boards at this point. The liquor license is truly under your jurisdiction, and the approval, denial, or revocation is your jurisdiction. Building permits are issued by myself, and they're appealable to me, or actually not to me, but to the Building Code Appeals Board. And once the project is operational, then the conditions of the site plan have been met, and those conditions would be enforced by me. In the period where we are now, that the site is still being constructed, it's under the supervision of the planning board and their consulting engineer, who visits the site at regular intervals on the invitation of the applicant to ensure that the site is being constructed in accordance with the site plan approval that the planning board granted. During this period, a couple of tent permits have been issued in conjunction with these events, and some containers were assembled without a building permit, which the applicant is aware of and is in the process of providing the proper documentation so that those can be properly permitted. So that's what the problem here is that you have multi-jurisdictions over various different parts of it, and it's going to stay that way, or it's going to continue that way until we get to a point where someone completes a project, and those who may be aggrieved by what's being done there provide substantial written documentation of the violation that's occurring that I may or may not be able to take an enforcement action against.
So you'd recommend any allegations of violations be submitted to your office in writing?
They have to be submitted to my office in writing. They have to be specific as to what the violation is.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brunel, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any more last comments? I would like to wrap this up. One last comment, sir? And there'll be plenty of time at our next meeting to talk about this as well.
My name's David Barnacle, and I live at Ladd Road, so I'm one of the people bringing you back to the original topics. 2 points that I would like to make. I can't understand Mr. Jennings having confusion about the plan that has been approved by the planning board about Ladd Road, because it specifically states on the accepted plan, emergency exit. It does not say exit. It does not say entrance. It says emergency exit. Point number 2 is that all of their information is relative to Brookfield Road. Yet the road that they're using to access Ladd Road is Bond Sawmill Road. And there is a document that Ms. Craver has a copy of that we sent her from the town of Sturbridge that clearly indicates that Bond Sawmill Road has not been accepted by the town of Sturbridge as being a connector to Ladd Road. That's it.
So noted, and I think having the planning board talk about this and make a decision, I think would be helpful to all of us.
But I don't understand the confusion. I think it's word game. Because if you see emergency exit, your assumption is it's an emergency exit. That does not mean it's an entrance or an exit. It means it was stipulated by the planning board to be emergency use.
I would not, I hesitate to interpret that. I think I would like to leave that to the planning board. But I understand the concerns that you are bringing up.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to see how this is. Do you have any more new information to add, or did you want to? Yes.
Can I add a piece of information?
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Just to help the process along a little bit. You have Ms. Stanley's letter in your press material or in your package for tonight. If you take a look, several pages down, it's in there.
What page is it on?
Do you know what page it was on?
I have it on page 46,
It's right here.
Yeah, an 88-page document.
many pages.
Page 46.
But that's my press material. It may be,
Yeah, we have the same.
And just for point of clarification, this was not sent to me. I did not see this until I got my packet. So, again, you can always send it to me directly, that's fine. To any of us directly. Thank you.
Is there any more comments?
Just who has these files that were attached? Robin?
I believe so. I think Ms. Craver, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Meskis, Mr. Philbrook, Mr. Charette. One last comment? This will be the last comment for tonight.
I just had one quick question.
Yep, please speak right into the microphone.
Oops. For these events that just happened, did they receive a temporary permit? Did Mr. Meskis give that in order to have, I know you guys had given them a liquor license, but was there actually a permit saying that it's okay to have these events? No.
Is that him or planning?
No,
I
Mr.
think this
Meskis.
was in conjunction with the permits that we issued with Mr. Meskis' approval.
No, I think she's asking about not the liquor, but just the
The
ability
operations?
to have the operation.
I'm not sure where Mr. Meskis went.
And that is something that I addressed with, I sent an email to Mr. Meskis asking that.
Have you
Specifically.
received a response? Did you send it to just Mr. Meskis? Did you include?
Nope, I included everybody. Well,
Everybody.
Robin Meskis and Mr. Meskis, I'm sorry.
I'll make sure someone follows up with that.
And then, so I'm just curious, because I know you guys, I guess it was pretty hazy, not clear, whether they had actually received a permit to be able to run these events. Because they were supposed to get, if it's not completed, they were supposed to get a temporary permit, and it had to been approved through Mr. Meskis. And I don't think, I mean, there hasn't been any knowledge, and I haven't heard back from Mr. Meskis whether or not.
We can ask to get an answer for you on that, too.
And that was it. Unless Mr. Jennings knows whether he received a permit or not.
I would rather just, honestly,
Just leave it.
I'd rather hear it from the office that would issue the permit.
No problem.
I mean, it's just fair to everybody that way.
That was it.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to thank you all for coming out and talking about this. This will be on our next meeting. Any actions for that will be taken there, and this meeting will be before the next event at the facility in question. So any actions that will affect that may be talked about or discussed and acted upon then. Thank you all for coming out.
The Boy Scouts got an earful tonight.
Yeah.
So did you.
We'll now move on to new business. Item number 1 under new business is the website renewal on page 48.
School committee, what about you guys? Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer,
I vote to.
can I please read the memo first? Thank you. Attached is the contract renewal for Westwell WebWorks. As you know, Westwell WebWorks maintains the Town of Charlton's website. The contract is due to expire June 30th, 2017. They are requesting to renew their contract with the town for a 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018 for the purpose of providing website maintenance services at the current rate of $250 per month. What are the wishes of the board?
I would move to approve the contract renewal, please.
Thank you.
I would second that for Westwell WebWorks.
Thank you. A motion is second to award the contract as requested. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 2, under new business, end-of-year budget transfer requests, page 50. As you know, the Municipal Modernization Act, one of my favorite acts, allows departments to transfer monies from one account to another within their budget with the approval of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. Attached are requests from the Public Safety Building Committee, Treasurer Collector, and the Town Clerk. Also attached is a reserve fund transfer from the Fire Department. What are these boards' wishes for these requests?
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would move to I would move to approve the request pending approval of FinCom's approval.
Thank you. And a point of note, Finance Committee will be meeting tomorrow night, and they will review them as well. Is there a second?
Second,
Your motion is second to approve the requests.
pending FinCom.
Pending FinCom. Any discussion? We lost a lot of audience members.
Where'd they all go?
It's like town meeting. Oh,
Right.
the vote happened.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 3 under new business, a special one-day liquor license request from the Knights of Columbus on page 61. Attached is a request for a special liquor license for all alcohol, nonprofit organizations only, sponsored by the Knights of Columbus to be used for dinner and entertainment. Simulated horse racing, including the Kentucky Derby, on October 14th, 2017, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. at St. Joseph's Church Hall. The request has been forwarded and approved by the building commissioner, fire department, and police department. Per the board's policy, the license, if the days requested are approved, should be issued for 2 additional days for the following reasons. October 13th, to allow delivery of alcohol to establishment where no sales will be allowed. October 14th, for the sale of the approved date and time as listed. October 15th, to allow for pickup of any unused alcohol, also no sales allowed. These dates would be reflected on the license. And what are the recommendations and the wishes of the board? Ms. Noble?
Mr. Chair, based on recent events, I'm wondering if we can put this off until the full board is here, because I don't know anything about this event, and I'd like to know what the history of it is.
The event's not till the 14th of October.
If that's the board's wishes, we have in the past approved these. St. Joseph's Church's events have not posed any issues. But if the board's wishes to delay it to our next meeting, I see no objections with that.
I have no problem with it either way. I agree, we've never had issues with these before, but Ms. Noble's, a new selectman, and we've always also honored selectman requests.
Mm-hmm.
And I see no harm.
Thank you. So seeing no action on that, we will postpone it, and I'll make sure it's on the next agenda meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 under new business, selectmen's meeting for our summer schedule, page 72. With summer coming, finally, members of the board aren't always available for meetings due to vacation schedules, work schedules, and the like. The following are the meetings for June, July, and August. We have June 6th, 20th, July 4th, July 18th, August 1st, August 15th, and August 29th. Ms. Craver will be on vacations the week of June 6th and July 4th. What are the board's wishes if we want to schedule monthly meetings? I know we talked about June 6th. We'll definitely have that since we will have the continuation of the 508 Beverage LLC discussion.
I can tell you that I will not be here for July 4th.
Makes sense. The town hall is also closed. So I would put forth a recommendation that we meet on June 6th, July 18th, and then August 15th, and then call any meeting if necessary.
Second.
That is not a
So
motion. So as a motion?
Second.
Thank you. A motion is second to set our next meetings to be June 6th, July 18th, and August 15th, and then we will meet, of course, as recommended and as needed, depending on any needs that arise. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Now move on to old business. And number 1 is the selectmen appointed to committees. So this is another group discussion. This, attached in the packet is At our last meeting, we asked to compile a list of what committees each of us was on, and attaches that list. We have removed Mr. Cooper's names from that list. We've been contacted by the Fay Mountain Farm Committee, who is asking for 2 active members of the selectmen that can attend their meetings, which are held about once every 2 months. In the past, Ms. Cooper often was able to attend the meetings. They have been trying to have meetings, but end up without a quorum.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Noble.
I have already been approached by the Fay Mountain Farm, and I would be honored to be appointed to that committee.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to appoint Ms. Noble to the Fay Mountain Farm Committee.
All right,
I will second. Would you like to second that motion?
I second
We
it.
have a motion and a second. Don't be so humble. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. So I would also recommend, so the list is attached, so we have the committees here.
It's like Public Safety Building Committee,
Yep.
and what's the one under that? Local Emergency Planning Commission, that needs one.
Probably want the rest of the selectmen here.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we can just talk about schedules and whatnot. So we filled the whole of the Fay Mountain Farm Committee, so, and we'll table the rest of it at our next meeting.
You know, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Singer.
I think number 2 under old business, we kind of should have maybe made action on that earlier today, so Chief Charette could have gone home. But I'm just gonna throw out there, I'm sorry, but I realized, I'm like, oh, that's at the bottom, that's right, we're doing that, and I know John and Rick and Robin all wanted to hold that, and I didn't know if you were told, like, you're sitting there, unless you had other business.
And I would say, I would thank Mr. Charette for being here, just in case he needed any comments or questions on the 508 discussion, so I appreciate you staying here through that. So with the Chief Assessment Center, there's no information at this time. Did you have anything you wanted to bring to the table? Anything you want to discuss about? Does any selectman have anything to say about that topic? Seeing none, we'll skip over that, and we'll add that to our next meeting. Is there any committee reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Student Select Business Report. Ms. Chupka, take it away.
I don't have much this week. We're going all the way ahead to June 4th. So June 4th is the class of 2017 graduation ceremony at the DCU Center at 1 o'clock. June 5th is the MCAS Biology Session 1, and June 6th is the MCAS Biology Session 2, and June 19th is the last day of school.
Awesome. Almost ends in sight.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for Ms. Chupka?
Are you graduating this year?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations from all of us. We'll see that later.
Worcester State University. Wonderful.
Awesome
Thank
school.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Charette.
Thank you, Chief.
Seeing no other comments, thank you for your report. We'll move on to the Town Administrator's report. I will read that. So anything I read with I, we, or me is in the Town Administrator's voice.
Okay.
The MIA distribution credits. We have received notifications by Maya, our insurance company, that they are issuing an additional participation credit to us in the amount of $1,480, which will be reflected in our renewal. These credits recognize the long-term loyalty and commitment of the Maya membership. The Guerin Dog Hearing. At the board's last meeting, a hearing was held on a dangerous dog owned by Richard Guerin of 8 South Sullivan Road. The board voted to agree with the recommendation of the animal control officer that the dog be humanely euthanized. Mr. Guerin had 10 days from the date of the letter to file a petition with the court, which he has. There is a hearing scheduled for Thursday, May 25th, 2017 at 2:30 p.m. in which the animal control officer and court officer will be present for. She will update us on the outcome. Any questions regarding these Town Administrator's report? Seeing none, is there any other business unknown at the time of posting?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, I actually would like to make a request. I was hoping to have the full board and Robin here to take action tonight. So instead, I would still like to have this on the agenda for the next Selectmen's meeting, I think we'll need all the selectmen here as well for anyone who may want to be involved. But I would like this board to, as we have with the Police Chief Search Committee and the Fire Station Building Committee, everything else, reestablish a school building committee. And I would like that school building committee to be tasked with providing an analysis to the economic impact of the town of Charlton, should we deregionalize and build our own high school and leave Shepherd Hill and Dudley Charlton Regional School District.
So in the building committee, would that, I feel like maybe
We can name it whatever we want.
a committee to look at that?
Deregionalization, to analyze and come back with what would be the economic impact to the town of Charlton, based upon what happened at town meeting, and looking at what we all know is going to happen at next year's town meeting, and the bigger picture. I think it would make sense to see if people are going to float possible 2.5 overrides, what's the impact to the town? With that being said, we should then know, if people are pushing for that, what would be the economic impact to the town to build our own school by comparison, as well as a pro and con, benefits to staying regionalized, benefits to deregionalization.
Makes sense to me, and especially one of the issues that, we've been facing and bringing up is obviously the lack of funds to fund at the level the school requires, to meet all the unfunded mandates brought down from the state, and all the, frankly, broken promises of, joining regionalization and realizing savings and a better product, so.
I think there would be additional costs to deregionalization, but at the same time, there would certainly be savings as well, and that's why I think we need an analysis done.
I would like to see that analysis do more than just look at the financial aspects. I'd like to look at the quality of education and the quality of life for the student body, and to see what deregionalization would do for them.
Which I think would fall under the pros and cons in addition to. And I agree, because I won't get into it tonight, but there are a lot of issues that would fall under that.
Absolutely, and we'll have that on our next meeting, and we'll have the town administrator look into that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other business unknown at the time of posting? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, sorry, second.
Any motion and a second to adjourn?
I want to stay.
Any discussion?
Okay.
You can stay, we just
You're
won't
by
be in meeting.
yourself.
Seeing no discussion, our next regular meeting will be June 6th, which will take up some of the issues that we did not take up tonight, and hopefully see you there. Stay, hopefully the weather stays. Have a great, you need to vote on the motion first. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. We are now adjourned at 8:05 PM. Thank you very much. Have a great night.